Hi, everyone. You are watching another episode of the Method to the Music show. Just like there is a method to the madness in life, there is a method to the music business. And this show aims to put you on game and teach you about all things music industry related. I am your host, Tynia Coats, Ty Law. Yeah, I am an entertainment attorney in the music business. I am also a professor at the Roc Nation School of Music, Sports, and Entertainment. I teach a course called Legal Aspects of the Music Industry. But this semester, I'm actually teaching a new course called The Music Business. And so in my last class, I did a lesson on what exactly is the music business. What does that entail for my students who did not know? And that actually led me into a pretty interesting discussion about critical race theory. And since it is Black History Month, I thought that was the perfect time to sprinkle that conversation over onto social media. So that's exactly what I'm about to do. Yeah, so basically, I was telling my students at some point that when you are entering into the music business, you need to learn the language, you need to learn the ecosystem, and you need to learn how to maneuver through that ecosystem so you do not get manipulated to someone else's benefit or so that you're not getting taken advantage of. And if so, then you want there to be an interest convergence. Now, interest convergence is a concept from critical race theory that I actually learned from law school, from my constitutional law class, which actually shout out to my constitutional law professor, Gina Shaw, because they do not teach critical race theory in every single law school inside this country. But going back to what I was talking about, the critical race theorist, Derek Bell, he has the concept of interest convergence. The concept suggests that advances in racial justice only happen when they align with the interest of the dominant majority, just typically white people. So in other words, those in power will only support racial progress if it benefits them. And we're seeing this beyond race right now as well with sexual orientation and gender identity as well. That's like where you see companies doing putting the flags up during the rainbow up during Pride Month. And then that's really because they're trying to sell more or they think that they can sell more products to people. That's their true interest with that. But I'm not going to get into all of that because I can't educate you guys on everything. Okay, let's stick to the topic, the music business. So, with interest convergence within the music business, within the music industry, the music business actually was started as a formal industry during the time of segregation in this country, the USA. And also, not even just that, like shortly after slavery was abolished, that's when the music industry started as a formal industry. So slavery was abolished in 1865, and then the music industry started as a formal industry within the 1880s, and then segregation was outlawed in this country in the 1960s. So there's like a good 80-year time span where the industry was operating during segregation. And also, like I said, only 15 to 20 years after slavery was abolished. So it should be no surprise that I could think of different racial or critical race theory concepts that apply in the music business as well. So since segregation was happening, there was a time where Black people were not allowed, Black artists were not allowed to participate in the business of making music. They can make music, but they're not going to be able to make money off of it or be in the music industry. But then, of course, white people that were in the industry, they decided, you know what, we can make money off of these Black artists. We can make money off this Black music. So we should let them and allow them to participate in the music industry. However, we have to come up with a way that we can manipulate and control them still. We have to be able to maintain control over the Black artists when they come in. And how do you do that? Well, the same way the country's doing us. You do that by creating a complex system, and then you keep the people uneducated about that system so that you are able to maintain control over them and the money that is being made. So that is where a lot of your fucked up contract terms come from in this industry. It's because it's based off of terms and the system that was created way back when to be able to control the Black artists and the money that they were making. And other ways beyond education or keeping them uneducated about a complex system is barriers of entry. They're like, okay, so like also when we allow them in, we cannot just allow all Black artists in. We cannot allow them to be running rampant. So what do we got to do? We got to create barriers of entry. We need to be the gatekeepers. We need to be the ones who say which Black artists come in or out. So they created a lot of barriers of entry. And I can I can give you guys an example on that, which has to do with ASCAP and BMI. And I have talked about this in another video on my channel if you have watched. So this might be not be news to you guys, but this could be shocking to a lot of people. So ASCAP and BMI are PROs, performing rights organizations. If you do not know that, performing rights organizations, they collect the performance royalties for songwriters when your music is played on the radio, TV, movies, restaurants, a whole bunch of other avenues. They also license your music to radio stations and streaming platforms, so they're able to play that music. So people are able to play songs on the radio. Radio stations are able to play songs on the radio because they have a license from ASCAP and BMI. And way back when, though, there weren't all these other ways to play music or consume music. It was really radio. But at the time, ASCAP was the only PRO in the USA. There was no BMI, no such thing, was not in existence. So all the radio broadcasters, for them to be able to play songs on the radio, they had to get a license from ASCAP. ASCAP was heavily discriminating against Black artists and artists of color. They were only allowing, how it works, if you don't know, is you have to become a member as a songwriter. You have to become a member of this organization. And when you become a member, all your songs and all your music are able to be licensed by radio stations for them to play on the radio. So ASCAP was not allowing Black artists to become members of ASCAP. They were only allowing white composers to become members of ASCAP. And what does that mean? That means that the radio stations were not able to play any music from Black artists because they could not license that music. But there were a lot of radio broadcasters who actually did want to play music from Black artists. They wanted to play jazz. They wanted to play R&B. They wanted to play country. They wanted to play Latin music, which back then they called race music, which is so stupid, but whatever. It is what it is. But yeah, they wanted to play this music. So they decided, we're going to start our own performing rights organization. And we're going to allow Black artists to become members and bring their music over so radio stations can play jazz, R&B, Latin music, country, things of that sort. So they had an open door policy, and they started allowing Black artists, Black and brown artists, POC, to become members. And that is how that music started being able to be played on the radio. And BMI, that organization that I just talked about, the PRO, that became BMI. BMI stands for Broadcast Music Inc. That is where it came from. The radio broadcasters coming together to create that new system to allow people to come in, people of color, open door policy. That's just a little history, and that's an example of how barriers of entry were created to keep Black artists out of the industry and to maintain control and power. Now, I do want to give this disclaimer because I know people are going to come for me in the comments. People always want to shoot the messenger. I am not saying that ASCAP is still racist to this day. That is their history, though. If you have a problem with anything that I am saying, you have a problem with their history. You do not have a problem with me. I am not making this up. I am not pulling this out of my ass. This is what it is. There are a lot of companies in our country that were founded and started during a time of segregation in our country who are still going strong today. That doesn't mean that they are racist today, but that does mean that the history is a history. You cannot ignore history. You cannot erase history, no matter how hard you want to, no matter if you do not teach it in schools, no matter if you take it out of the books, no matter if you act like it doesn't exist. History is there. You decided to do it, not me. So I'm not saying that. ASCAP is a really good PRO. They do employ a lot of amazing Black people. I will say that. They have a lot of resources. I have a lot of people who are members of ASCAP, and they have nothing but good things to say about ASCAP. So I don't want anyone to come for me about that. And people also say, oh, well, you used to work at BMI, so that's why you're just biased. I did used to work at BMI, and maybe that does create a level of biasness with me, but that biasness does not create history. I am not the one who did that. That's just my disclaimer. Yeah. Okay, but let me bring this back to the point of this video. So I was telling my students that it is in your best interest to learn the language of the music business, to learn the ecosystem, and to learn how to maneuver through the ecosystem, because you have to understand that this system was created by those in power, and they intentionally did things to maintain control over the Black artists. But now it just applies across the board. That system still is strong to this day, and it doesn't just affect Black artists. It affects all artists now. All artists who don't have money, basically, Black, brown, even poor white people. It affects those artists as well. So you need to know this history to know that a big reason why they were able to maintain control and maintain that power was by making sure that the artists were uneducated. That's why it's in your best interest to educate yourself. Knowledge is power. It truly is power. It really is in your best interest to learn the language, to learn the ecosystem, and learn how to maneuver through the ecosystem so that you are not being manipulated or you are not being taken advantage of. And if so, then like I said, you want to make sure that there is an interest convergence, and just understand that no one in this industry, nobody in power in this industry is going to help you progress your music career unless it benefits them. And if it does not benefit them, they are not going to help you. So I want you guys to think of the music business from that perspective and use that to your advantage. The same way that they are not going to help you unless it benefits them, you also need to make sure that you are not doing anything in this business unless there is a benefit to you. And it does not have to be a financial benefit, but some type of benefit. If you are not getting the benefit that you want, then don't do it, because then you just are straight at being played. You're just straight at being played. That is what I wanted to really talk about. I do have a lot of things that I think about in the industry that are not just like, so this is how royalties work. This is how contracts work. This is how publishing works. Like my brain does think about so many other concepts, and I would love to talk about more concepts in the industry. I guess right now, because we're on it, let me see if I can think of another one, like legally, that has to do with Black history or discrimination or something that I think is interesting. Oh, this is a concept that I have thought about many times, and it has to do with contracts. In contract law, and this is just contracts altogether, any type of contract. This does not have to do with just music business contracts. But in our country, in the USA, when it comes to personal service contracts, a lot of the music industry contracts are personal service contracts. A personal service contract is when you are offering a service to someone. You're not exchanging like a product. You are performing a task for someone. You are building a house for someone. You are planning an event for someone. You are an artist and you are giving your recording services to a record label. These are performing services. These are personal service agreements. So in our country, the 13th Amendment abolished slavery and prohibits involuntary servitude unless you are being punished for a crime. So criminals, again, I'm not going to educate you on everything, but those who are in jail, those who are in prison, they are allowed to be slaves, basically. But involuntary servitude, I don't even know. I laugh. I have an awkward laugh, guys, just so you know. But involuntary servitude is forcing someone to work against their will, forcing someone to do something for you, to do some type of work for you, to do some type of service for you against your will, involuntarily. And since this is part of the 13th Amendment, you have a constitutional right. So courts, they cannot enforce contracts that cause involuntary servitude to happen, because that would be modern day slavery and that would be violating someone's constitutional rights. There are so many laws put in place to where they keep people safe and protect them from that in other industries, where you're not allowed to, let's say, like the court cannot say, you just decide that you don't want to keep building this person's house. You can just stop. Even if they paid you, you can just stop building the house and you don't have to build it. The court cannot come and say, you have to build this house. You have to finish building this house for them, because that's involuntary servitude. But the court can say, well, you do owe them whatever amount of money because of that. That's how that normally works. However, in the music business, for some reason, I always try to like figure this out. Why this is allowed. Like, why an artist, when you are signed to a label, you cannot leave that label. Like, there are people who are fighting so hard to get out of the labels, and I know because I'm a lawyer and I do this, and it's really hard to get out of a record label contract. But how come that's allowed? Because isn't that a form of involuntary servitude? Isn't that a violation of somebody's constitutional rights? And basically, there's been a workaround around this law. So no, the courts cannot force an artist to keep making music for a record label. However, they do what is basically a negative injunction. An injunction, for those who do not know, is basically, let me try to think of it in English, plain English terms. An injunction is when the court says you can't do a certain thing or action anymore. Like, you can't play that song anymore. You can't do something anymore. They basically stop you from doing something. They tell you can't do anything. So in the music business, when it comes to record labels and artists, they will say, we can't force this artist to keep making music for you. However, we can give a negative injunction. The record label will seek an injunction that this artist cannot make music for anybody else, for no other labels, for nobody else. And if you cannot make music for anybody else, what are you going to do? That puts the pressure on the artist, that forces them to then be like, okay, well then I have to make music for this label because I can't make it anywhere else. So it's basically like, you're either going to make music for us or you can't make music for anyone. That's the workaround that is allowed in the music industry, which I believe is still a violation of someone's constitutional rights. But I digress, or I don't digress. That's just an interesting point for you guys to think about. I'm just thinking about things right now that come into my head. I come up with a lot of things. My brain just be moving. And I think it's interesting to talk about certain things, just to have these discussions. Like, even with that contractually, I don't really know. I don't have a point with that, besides I'm trying to give you guys some other facts that revolve around the music business with slavery and discrimination and segregation, because it is Black History Month. And I'm trying to think of it from a legal standpoint, because not everybody are lawyers and everybody understands or knows these things. So these are just some things that stuck out to me. And maybe you guys will find them interesting, maybe not. Who knows? I do want to say, though, do not shoot the messenger, because I shoot back. How about that? Don't shoot the messenger, because I shoot back. I definitely shoot back. I definitely clap back. I am not the person that you want to come for this, okay? I'm not. But yeah, I hope that you guys found this interesting. I will be making more music business content. You guys will be seeing me more. Fingers crossed. I have so much stuff that's going on in my life, but it is what it is. I'm not going to go through all of that. You should follow me on social media, though. Follow me on Instagram. Here's my handle, TYNIA COATS. I post a lot in my stories, way more than I post here on YouTube, and way more than I post on my actual Instagram page. Yeah, if you want to keep up with me and see what I'm doing, if I have a talk or a panel at the Roc Nation School, which is in Brooklyn, New York, then I put that on my stories as well on Instagram. So those are some reasons that maybe you should follow me. Also, hit subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can and hit the notification bell so you can be notified whenever I post new videos, because y'all know that I don't have a consistent schedule. So if you want to be notified, then click the notification bell and subscribe. Yeah, I think we're going to end there. So in the meantime, and in between time, do not get lost in the madness that is the music business, because there's a method to the music business. Bye, guys.